Oh, we are live, and we knew that you were going to go sideways. That happens every time you start. That's
As soon
funny.
as we go sideways, or as soon as we go live, I always go sideways every time.
This is the Knives and Nonsense Show. I'm Thrifty. I'm here with Chris. How you doing, Chris?
How's everybody doing?
Wave hello to the crowd of maybe minus one person. And we have also Jake from Uncommon EDC joining us today.
What's
Thank
going
you
on,
for
everyone?
coming on, Jake.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about sort of the knife industry as a whole, and the good, the bad, some things that we can improve on, maybe things that we're really happy about. Just kind of chitter chatter about kind of the state of what we're seeing out there right now, how things are. What's the forecast? How's the weather doing? But I think Chris and I were mainly discussing things about buck that we'd like to talk about, but Jake has a more general view that we're going to discuss. And we'll start with Jake because ours is pretty kind of short and sweet. That'll probably
Yeah.
take us to kind of get through that. So we'll start with you, Jake. What is some? Well, first before we get going, maybe I think a lot of people probably want to know what's going on with the just the tip thing. So let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, so we haven't gone live since I think January now. I think most people know Tim's brother passed away, and we just never really got back into it. So we had talked about it for a few weeks, and he needed some time, and yeah, just haven't picked it back up. It's not gone for good. Most likely at some point we will, but for now, it's on pause.
Okay. Well, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything. I just think a lot of people were probably curious about that. They enjoyed the show and then, just kind of went away without much discussion about it. So
Yeah.
I think I was like a lot of people just didn't know what happened. And I want to send condolences to Tim and the loss of his brother. That's very, very hard thing to go through. So thoughts to you, Tim. Hope you're doing better, buddy. But we've got, let's see, we've got 15 in here. Let's give a little quick rundown. We've got Scott the Blades. We've got Stacy's Bolstered Blades. We have Absolute Unit in here, obviously. Splitting Slices. Byron, how are you doing? Says hello to everyone. Andrew over at Baxter's Blades. Of course, we've got your audio queued up, buddy. And guess what else we have queued up for you, Tiger? Your lady. We see Andrew. We'll make sure to play the sound. We also have Watch City 9. Sean, how are you doing, sir? We have Rod Tenring. And I believe I've got everyone so far that has posted into the chat. I know there's more people in here that have joined but not said anything. Oh, there we go. Chief in there and Mike Adams too. So hello, guys. All right, kick it off, Jake. Let's kind of see what you want to start off with. What do you feel like the positive thing that's going on right now?
Yeah, so I think the biggest influence when you asked me about, the future of the knife industry, the first thing I thought about was mainly just the economy and like tariffs, things like that, and where it's kind of driving it. So I think we'll see, a lot more in the budget field, but we might have to start looking elsewhere other than China. I know we have like a 3-4 month pause on it, but if that starts to go up, we might see some more American OEMs starting to pop up, hopefully in the somewhat budget field, as far budget as American can go. But hopefully some of that, maybe some Taiwan, Vietnam is other options that do really good work already. There are OEMs out there doing good work. So I would look forward to, I think, something like that, knowing that there's kind of budget conscious, but also putting out good knives.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting that you said those other countries because, if we get in some sort of little tax or a tariff warfare with China or whatever, a battle back and forth where things got out of hand, there might be some other Asian countries that could manufacture the knives as well. And we know, of course, with Spyderco, they've used Taiwan in the past.
Yeah.
And that they're not completely, oblivious to knife making. They obviously have some manufacturing going on there for that sort of thing. And Spyderco's top-notch brand, so you would think they would do pretty good work.
They also do some stuff in Italy now too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, I know Line Steel's doing some OEM
Yep.
stuff. Cold Steel does theirs out of, want to say Vietnam, or are they Taiwan also?
Yeah, I'm just not sure.
But
I want
yeah,
to say some of it is. I know some of it is Taiwan. I think still.
yeah, but they definitely have
Yeah.
the capabilities to, I think, ramp that up a little bit, and hopefully
Oh
we'll
yeah.
see
Right.
some companies trying it out. But I've definitely heard on like the American front that some of the American fixed blade makers are doing some OEM work now. And so hopefully we'll see more of that too. And a lot of that's been regularly priced, medium priced, not too out there
Yeah.
so far.
Right. Yeah, the thing about the fixed blades is, well, when you get into slip joints and you talk to people like Andy, they're going to tell you the first thing is like, slip joints are just harder to manufacture. They're more difficult. There's a little more to it.
Yeah.
And I can see why American OEMs would, kind of gravitate towards the fixed blade. It's an easier thing to do, and they can keep the price down and still have some really high quality knives. But I guess for my own personal interest, it doesn't do a lot for me just because I'm not a big fixed blade guy. But
Right.
I do like to see that new U.S. guys that are out there and getting into the market. That's always a good thing to see because you never know, they might at some point kind of gravitate more towards uh, expanding their product and maybe even do um, some slip joints, even if that means they do that overseas. So you
Yeah.
just never know.
Yeah, I think River's Edge Cutlery started doing some OEM work for modern folders. I don't think they've gotten into slip joints yet, but modern folders are doing some OEM work, and I want to say they're out of like Ohio or something like that.
Hmm.
So
Right.
definitely starting to see a little bit more of that too. It would be interesting to see if they get into slip joints though.
Yeah. Like brands like Cooper Cutlery, they've come a long way in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think their quality's increased quite a bit, and they're putting out some pretty neat stuff. I don't know if they compete with GEC at this point, but at least you have someone doing something similar in that regard, and it's nice to see them. I believe they bought up the Shat and Morgan brand and some others. What is it? The Dollar Knife brand, some others.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see OEM American workers
Yeah.
doing some traditional stuff. But yeah, the state of the politics, and it's almost hard to escape talking about it.
Yeah.
That's not something that I want to bring up on my channel all that much, but it's kind of hard to avoid when it's hurting your pocketbook, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, what else do you see? What do you see for, maybe just the people that are in, say, China? What are they going to do to try to, avoid shutdowns, avoid, fewer orders and that sort of thing? What do you think? What do they do to adjust to this?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm very curious if we see some consolidation of brands, some of the bigger ones buying up some of those smaller OEMs out there.
Hmm.
That's, I think what we would typically see here is things get a little bit tighter as people consolidating brands, maybe trying to eventually sell them off to bigger companies. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some consolidation. I also think like we haven't really seen, we had the Ontario Wrap for a while, and then like the Civivi Elementum. We really haven't seen a crazy budget knife that's taken over like those knives have in a while. So wouldn't be surprised to see some competition on that front. The other thing I
Right.
think is just like weird innovation. I don't know if you guys have seen what Winter Blade did for the
Oh yeah.
2025 Blade Atlanta. He's got that like, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a catapult that launches a blade out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
stupid. It's dumb. It's not like good for a knife, but I just really like seeing companies doing stuff like that and trying stuff out. And, who knows? Maybe we'll have a brand new mechanism that none of us are even really thinking about. But
All right.
I think weird innovation like that. Another thing we've been seeing a lot of brands. I know Civivi's done one. I think Kaiser's done it. Remet is adding just kind of additional functionality. So like with the B, we have the titanium toothpick, And then there's others like the tweezers and stuff, which isn't all that innovative. Obviously we've had that with Victorinox forever, but would love to see just more of this kind of stuff, extra utilities making its way into the knife that's not just like a glass breaker on the end. But yeah, stuff like that I think would be really interesting. We get so much of the same design nowadays, especially on the modern front, that we're really not seeing that much new originality. So I get excited for stuff like that.
Sorry about that. Hamster died. Having some internet issues tonight, so bear with me.
Have that now.
Yeah, I know. It's the third time it's come out. But anyway, I didn't get to hear the end of what you were saying there, but I'm sure it was entertaining. Something where I got cut off was when you were showing the toothpick there. And what was the brand of that again?
That one was Remet.
Remet. Okay.
Yeah. And these are like medium price. They have some that are a little bit more premium, but this one I think is on the lower end, probably closer to around $100.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit under that. I think this one was like $80. So they have both ends of the spectrum, but I just like seeing companies do something different than the G10 drop point blade liner lock.
Right. Yeah, the idea that you can reinvent something in the knife industry is particularly with the traditional knives. We had this discussion amongst some of my friends before, but it's more or less everything's been done.
Yeah.
And to call something, there's some companies that get upset about, oh, you've done a Sodbuster Junior or whatever, and oh, you've copied that, or whatever. It's just like it's always been a game of putting out something that is maybe just slightly different to call it your own. And the idea that there's some new design that's going to renovate or not renovate, but like just completely be innovative in the traditional space. It's hard to imagine. Let's just say, I think everything's kind of been done, but maybe just slight tweaks here and there to call it your own. And I think that's what's fun. It's just like, oh, we're going to see a Sodbuster design. What is he going to do differently to kind of separate himself from someone else?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There can't be a lot of things, but you can do enough.
And I think that's true. Just across any business, not just the knife world. It's almost everything's been done. When I was starting my business, I had this book outside my desk. I still have it by the side of my desk, actually. Still like an artist, because there's no original ideas left. Everything is borrowing from something. It's just a matter of making it your own, tweaking it enough that it's original and different, but you're not going to have a brand new concept now. We've been making knives for too long.
Well, and like you mentioned them earlier, Winter Blade Co. And I think that's
Brian with Winter Blade Co.
Yeah, they've in the last 15, 20 years, they have some of the most innovative stuff I've seen in that period of time.
Yeah.
You'll see little stuff here and there, but the stuff they're doing is just like, whoa. It caught, I remember seeing them first time on Instagram, like, whoa, with some of the prototypes and everything they were doing, just like, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to innovate.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why even though, like with the knife that he's releasing at Blade Show, where I'm not all that interested into, I don't think it's, a great design that we're going to see on a bunch of different things. I just think it's cool to see it. And I might even buy one just to have something different, even though it's probably less efficient than just a flipper tab.
Well, it's like some of his out the front designs, some of the prototypes I've seen, he was still using springs, he was using magnets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just that right there, I mean, some of them look kind of similar to other out the fronts, but it was just the mechanism itself that caught my attention.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, speaking of, just kind of on topic with that, like just recently got a package from over in the UK, and I'm going to show some of those knives tonight, but one of these was a Sodbuster design that Ashley Harrison came up with. Now, he's a custom designer over with Arthur Wright and Son, And instead of putting, the traditional drop point blade on the sodbuster, he went with the clip point blade. So just little things like that show you that, there's still things that can be done and be terrific designs. But those that are familiar, that we called this the Brit Buster. So
nice.
And I don't see why that wasn't done sooner. That should have been done a long time ago. Is when that should have been done.
Yeah. But as far as I know, that's the first time I've seen a clip point on this style.
Yeah.
Knife. But I could be wrong. I'm sure it's probably been done. I just never seen it.
Right. It's nice though. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. And desert ironwood, for those who were wondering.
I'm slightly jealous.
Because
he has 2 of them.
Nice.
Yeah, just a beautiful custom work from Ashley, one of my favorite customizers. But what do you think about? Let me ask Jake this, because this was going to be our topic, more or less, Chris. Buck has been using like 420 HC for since probably like the mid 80s. I want to say they switched in 82. I could be wrong about the exact year, but right in that time frame. A lot of people complain that's that steel's kind of dated and maybe needs to be updated. And what are your thoughts on like what they would have to do in order to kind of keep the prices where they're at, but maybe also possibly introduce a little higher grade steel in their like entire regular line of knives, not like customs, not their custom shop or like web specials, but just their stuff that they release to Cabela's and Walmart and just their basic line. What would they be able to do that, and then also keep the price down, but also maybe give you just a little more steel?
Yeah, I think if they were gonna try and keep the price down, they're gonna have to stick with something like D2 or 14C28N. You can't go that much higher and keep the prices similar is the problem. But with that, you're not getting that big of an upgrade where you're also upsetting the traditionalists who would rather just stick with 428C. So it's a really kind of weird balance, I think, where, you can get a slight upgrade, but, then you're upsetting the other side. And so it's not really a great situation either way. But I think those are probably something along those lines are the steels they would have to go with if they were going to upgrade and keep on that lower price point. I'm in a weird spot with Buck because I think every Buck that I own is a sprint run of some sort with like modern steel. So I don't own any of the 420HC.
Right. Okay. So,
but those are also a lot higher priced. They come in at $150, $200.
Considerably, you're looking at like what 60, well, let's just say 75 for like a basic 110 that you can get anywhere.
Right.
Now you might be able to find it 65, something like that. I don't know, but prices seems to be pretty consistent throughout the retail shops. But Chris and I were talking about 14C28 might be, a steel that you could implement without a massive increase in price, but maybe, I mean, you say there's only a slight increase. Would it be enough? Let's say, well, Chris has always said that he's not a massive fan of the 420HC from his experience of trying to skin deer. Like he had to resharpen multiple times to do it.
Yeah.
Would 14C28 be able to perform that task without a resharpen? So something like that, even if only slightly better, that could be a consideration. You know what I mean? If you could get through that one job without having to do anything more to the knife.
Well, that's the thing with that experience with me. That was a uncommon experience because there was quite a few deer we were cleaning that day.
Yeah.
With most people, they're gonna go through. They're probably gonna be processing one deer. That's it.
Yeah. You're saying it up front. It's a kind of an unusual situation.
Yeah, it was an unusual situation. Now there are some people that do that more commonly, but it's still, even then, it's not going to be done each and every time. With me, 14C28N, it's good. I think that's a good choice, but also AEBL, which is similar. But AEBL I know is very budget friendly. It's still easy to sharpen, gives you more edge retention, it's very tough, and very stainless. Like it's giving you a little bump and upgrade for not much in the way of price. Now, Jake, you mentioned D2. The only issue I see with D2, or two issues actually, would be it's got more wear resistance than I think they would probably want to do on a massive scale.
Right.
The production, they would probably have some production issues that wear out belts or whatever they're using to grind it with, or the machines they use. They would go through materials faster, so that would increase cost. Also, I think with some people, they want that toughness of 420. So that would kind of knock D2 off a little bit, I think. And they wouldn't probably like sharpening it either.
Right.
But with AEBL or 420, C28 or 14 C28N, I think one of those two steels would give you a bump and edge retention while keeping everything else reasonable and just, it'd be a good balance. And as far as people that say that 420 HC doesn't need a change, or they might, be mad about it, hey, they've changed steel before. People probably got mad then too, maybe. Well, maybe not way back when, because they probably didn't even notice. But again, I don't think they would notice much this time either, besides like, hey, seems to be a little bit sharper, hold the edge a little bit longer, But like I said, I don't know. It's just you're gonna have downside. You're gonna have pros and cons with everything. But I think it's about time to put 420 HC out the pasture, because there are better options for not much money.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought about AEBL. That's an interesting one too.
Yeah.
I like 14C28N a lot. I like I said, with same thing you said with D2. I just don't know that there's enough of an upgrade there. That there's really
the edge
there.
retention would be a huge upgrade over 420 HC.
Yeah, but you lose corrosion. Protection.
Yeah, but you're losing a lot of toughness in D2 compared to 420.
Yeah.
420 is pretty tough stuff. But that's where the AEBL would come in, and because that's really tough. Because when I was really big into like LC200N, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
A little bit, yeah. I know it's super corrosion resistant.
It's a nitrogen-based steel, but the cheaper alternative to that was like AEBL. It's a super tough. It's a real fine grained steel. So if you want a toothy edge, you could put it up there. If you want to mirror polish it or more polished edge, you could do that. And again, it's just super easy to sharpen too. I don't see any.
Rob brings up another steel that it's not going to be inexpensive to upgrade to, but an interesting steel nonetheless that maybe they would put on.
Well, Magnatuff, if it's the one I'm thinking about, it's not. Is it the one? I think it's the one that was it Bradford did. They did a little run of them, but they named it weird because it's not. It's more like MagnaWear than Magnatuff in the naming scheme of things. It's higher wear resistant than MagnaCut, so it's also less toughness. Right. So that probably wouldn't
still be some compromise there. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in the budget realm on that.
Right.
And not to mention it'd be really expensive.
It's one of the things they say is the best about the MagnaCut is just is incredibly well balanced. In terms of the three characteristics.
And that's where that's one reason I loved LC200N at the time, because it was really well balanced. It was tough. It held a decent edge for a decent amount of time. It was still easy to sharpen. The only thing it won't balance on was the price, because that stuff was really expensive. Where AEBL beats, I think, most of those in the price department, because it's cheap. And also you got to think about the heat treat as well. The heat treat on AEBL would not be as complicated as, say, like MagnaCut, Magnatuff, some of the others. So that's another consideration. And I think that's one reason why they've stuck with 420 for so long, because they got it dialed in. It's not an expensive heat treat, and they can turn them out.
Yeah, well, I just also think there's a trickle down effect with all the steels. Once you kind of get into one that's becomes more popular, like Magna Cut, for example. I mean, Queen just put out a knife that's slip joint. SMKW, owns Queen. Well, they own the name. They put out a little slip joint folder just recently. It was like $225. Now, that's a lot for anything that's directly made by SMKW, or they have their different brands, but for any of the brands that they make or OEM or have their name associated with, that's a lot of money. But it shows you that Magna Cut has become a lot more mainstream when you can see them on those types of brands. So I think that's going to maybe potentially, replace other steels and make the ones at the bottom, kind of drop off, and then you have your new budget steels. That's just sort of how it works, right? You just
because
kind of fall off the list.
I don't know if y'all remember when Magna Cut first hit the scene, it was really expensive because they weren't making large batches of them. But now that it's becoming so popular and they're making larger batches of them, the more they can make at one time, the cheaper it is to, for the end customer.
Right.
So the larger the batch, they have more of it. It ends up becoming cheaper. So yeah, it'll knock the budget steels off that are at the bottom already.
Yeah. And the thing with D2, I don't know that that's necessarily a fantastic option for buck, because when I think like a 110, I think of that being in some slimy, wet mud and being hard used, and it's like maybe D2 is just not the greatest option for that.
Well, it's the D2s. It still has the same problem. Well, I can say a problem, but it's still it's a characteristic it's always had. It's never been the toughest steel.
Yeah,
that's been the one part of it that's been kind of unbalanced. It's
right.
just not how on that scale, and never will be, just because it's D2. It is what it is.
Right. And not high enough in chromium content to be considered stainless either. So you've got their, you really got to consider that. I think 14C28 is a better option. I just do.
Yeah.
For
Well,
lower end.
and they did do like the CPM D2, and that bombed badly.
Did it?
It was a good steel, but it just, I don't think that it just didn't take off.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. A lot of people like the S30V is a great option. I don't know how budget that can be. I know you can still get that in their custom shop, and they're not incredibly different than the Magna Cut. Honestly, there's not a lot of savings there.
Yeah, because I remember when S30V was one of the premium steels where Magna Cut is now, and that stuff was really expensive, and it has come down a lot in price. But with the materials that go into making it and the process, you're only going to get it but so low. It's never going to be cheap as some other steels. Not to mention the heat treat on it too. That goes back to production. The heat treat on S30V, depending on how you're doing it, it's never going to be as cheap as like probably 420 or ABL 14 or 14C28N. It's just, it takes more effort to heat treat it.
Yeah, one of the other advantages that a lot of people don't really discuss because they're more concerned with the other characteristics, but you have 420C HC being extremely easy to sharpen. And you can do it in the field pretty, it's just relatively easy to do. Where, if you've got D2, it's going to be a little more of a challenge, or 14C, and even less of a challenge than maybe some other steels, but it's, it's not like 420, how easy it is to sharpen.
Well, I know like I said, that's one of the things with the 14C28N and the ABL that I think hold on to that part of it is they're pretty easy to sharpen. You don't even have to have diamond stones to sharpen them.
No, not at all.
No. You could
and
use
a lot of that is like diamond stones weren't even necessarily available. Well, certainly not to the extent they are today when that was first introduced. So,
because back then D2 you only saw on custom knife makers used it. That's all the only ones that used it. And I think back then also Benchmade was one of the few companies that were using S30V as well, and that was one of the complaints for both of them, is they weren't easy to sharpen unless you had diamond stones. But
So
now you just
Byron wants he agrees the AEBL for toughness and then the 154 CM ease of sharpening, both stainless. So would be price effective for buck, new stock, and heat treating cost. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little shocked that they've stuck with it as long as they have. I guess that's just the one thing. But it's got to come down to price, or they're probably just not wanting to change prices. And they probably, I don't know.
Yeah, and
maybe they got a massive like backlog of steel that they got. I don't know how that works necessarily. Like how often do they have to replace their stock?
Well, they probably do, but again, you just work through it while you're getting everything ready for the new steel coming through. That's just shouldn't be an issue.
They sell a hell of a lot of 110s. You think they would run out fairly quick?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, Jake. So tell us more about what you think the future holds. What do you see being some other, maybe not steel changes, but do you see any trends in the market where you think something's going to become more popular in the future? See anything like that?
I'm really not sure. I think, like I said, kind of early on in the live, I think we might start seeing a lot of consolidation. There's just so many brands out there that are putting out so many knives that are all very similar, and with combining that with the economy, I just think that at some point, some of these companies are going to start buying each other up and just kind of taking the main lines from each of them and consolidating everything. Is kind of what my expectation has been for a little bit now. Haven't really started to see that at all though, but so we'll see.
Yeah. But as far as trends or anything like that, are you seeing more particular style of knife? Like, for example, I've kind of gone off of flippers whenever I'm looking for a modern knife. I think the introduction of that new design that sort of has a 90-degree cutout, it's still a flipper, but it doesn't protrude from the knife.
Right.
Gives it a little cleaner feel. And then whenever you have it open, you don't have the problem of the flipper being in the way of getting all the way down.
Oh, you're talking like a front flipper.
Or no, I think they have like the kick stop where
it's just got a notch. Okay, say this knife was an example of that. It would have like a 90-degree cut here at the front, and that flipper fits into there. You kind of flip it from that position, if you follow me. So just things like that I think would be more innovative than just as SMKW has kind of gotten me onto saying is the chicken wing design, where you have a little protruding chicken wing at the top of your flipper knives.
I call it pocket pecker.
Yeah, and I have kind of seen more and more of the front flipper designs.
Yeah.
I even have one here to show you. This one's from Real Steel. I'm going to be doing a review of this at some point, but I used to hate these. Now it's not such a big deal because I've just really practiced with this knife to the point where I'm comfortable doing it. But I guess when you first get it, it's a little intimidating, like getting it open. And I think a lot of the traditional guys, maybe they don't use the modern knives as often, kind of have avoided them. But as you see, I've gotten really good at it. It's not a problem. You can figure it out. But I do like that because when you look at like the profile of the knife, it's just a lot cleaner looking. You don't have that big protrusion out the top. And then obviously when you have the knife blade open, you don't have to worry about getting all the way down at the front edge there near the choil. So what do you see like that? Design changes that are maybe kind of becoming a little more mainstream, anything like that?
I do like the kick stop where the flipper tab kind of disappears. Front flippers, I kind of go back and forth. I've gotten used to them just like you, where I'm pretty proficient with them, but I don't love the look of it unless it's very, very subtle.
Right.
A couple companies, I think Spyderco in that Lion Steel collab they did, and a couple other companies have actually started doing removable flipper tabs. And so there's a small screw in there, so you can either change the placement or remove them completely. And I really like that if you have multiple deployment methods anyway, to give you the opportunity to say, hey, I don't want the thumb stud on here, I'm keeping the flipper, or vice versa. I don't want the flipper, without having to send it out to be reprofiled or grinded off. And so I really like that kind of stuff, giving us a lot more options. Would love to see more companies doing something like that.
Yeah, so increased versatility with the yeah, that's nice. I do like that. I like when people think outside the box for that sort of thing. Yeah, and I'd like to see more of that sort of thinking in the traditional world too. There's a lot of, we've got to do it this particular way because it's always been done that way. There's some companies that it feels like they just don't want to break away from anything and kind of become too rash in their design.
Yeah.
And maybe it would be a massive failure, but sometimes you have to try things.
Yep.
I think a lot of companies maybe just a little bit afraid of trying things. Like one thing I've said for a long time is the trapper. Just never been a massive fan of the spay blade on a trapper. And you do have some knives that have alterations in the two blades. Case is one example. Sometimes they'll have a single bladed Warncliffe. Sometimes they'll have a secondary blade that's different from the spay blade. But you just don't see a ton of single bladed trappers. There are some. It does happen. But I think it's a great handled knife that I avoid just because I don't want the second blade, particularly if it's a spay blade. Yep. And I just look around my collection. I go, yeah, I don't have a lot of trappers. Main point being I don't like the spay blade on it. So if they were to, put a spear point blade on a trapper, I'd be happy with that. Something like that. Lamb's foot. Would like to see some out of the box thinking with the trappers. I think a lot of it also has to do with case. Yeah, cases. They must sell just a ton of trappers, and perhaps it's because they do have two blades. I don't know, but for me, it's always been kind of one of those knives where you see it and it's just like, oh, another trapper. It's going to be one of the knives in that series of knives every single time.
Right.
And they sell well, so I'm kind of like, I'm not in the camp that would probably be buying one of those, even though that obviously they're selling them or they wouldn't continue to make them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's again like a little bit of a catch-22. They're popular knives, but we'll like to see them do a little something different with them.
For sure.
But what kind of thing like that would you like to see, Chris?
Oh, well, it's like you said with the spay blade. I'm tired of seeing spay blades. Definitely tired of seeing spay blades. I guess with some of the traditional slip joints, this is just for myself, I'd like to see some a little bit larger knives. Some of them are just, they're always making these small knives, and I don't like small knives. But as far as like trends, I would expect, because slip joints have hit another surge in popularity in the last 5 years again, 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to start swinging the other way at some point. I think it's just kind of the ebb and flow of things with that. Don't know if it's going to take another 5 or 10 years for it to happen, but I think that's going to happen at some point. With moderns, I don't even know about moderns. Everything's just so volatile with moderns. It's hard to tell. I know they're always looking for the next big material, steel wise, handle material, something like that.
Yeah.
And everybody always loves like new different locking mechanisms that come out. Say like the Demco's, Shark Lock, stuff like that. So you can never tell about that either.
Jake, do you recall the name of that real steel knife? We got a question from Jeff wanting to know if you remember.
The front flipper one you were showing?
Oh, is that the one he was asking about? I thought you were talking. Okay, yeah, that one is called the RB3. RB3, yeah, Real Barlow 3. So it has a clip on it. Sorry about that. I was thinking lion steel for some reason in my head. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, it has a clip. It's reversible, but I've taken it off, and it's just one of those wire clips. It's kind of cheesy, but yeah, front flipper, and you can also open it with the little notch there, just like a traditional knife. So you got that option. But yeah, little front flipper design. RB3 from Real Steel. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries. Do you think we'll start to see some of the modern materials making their way into traditional builds with slip joints? So do you think we'll ever see like titanium covers on a slip joint? And at what point does that become traditional? All new materials with slip joints eventually do become like, oh, that's something you see on traditionals. Micarta didn't used to be on there, but it's something you can see now. Do you think we'll see new materials starting to make their way?
I think so. That's a natural progression, I would think.
Sure.
Trickle down.
Yeah, I think one of the things that they haven't done yet that they could is a lot of the the modern traditionals that you see with the modern materials, a lot of the carbon fiber and all the fancy things like Jack Wolf would make. Okay, give you an example, but to do it while pinning too, because when I see torque screws on the side, that's kind of like an automatic, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Do you think we'll start seeing some traditional company with traditional construction using these newer modern materials?
That's an interesting question. I think it's a market that's untapped. I think it could be done. Yeah.
Well, I know it could be done. Definitely could be done. Like you're talking about, like just using titanium. I know it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it would probably make it, using like titanium covers. You don't have to worry about, like, say if you're using bone or stag or something, you don't have to worry about cracking at all. Same with the wood. Even micarta, when if you do the pinning wrong, you can crack that too. But with titanium, it's like you could just pin the hell out of it. You'll be good. I think another thing with the traditional that we'll see, that we hopefully will start seeing, is more like the guys that are using, like, say, your basic carbon steels, maybe moving up a little bit to not, I ain't saying they're going to use super steels, but moving the line a little bit to a little bit better or higher end carbon steels, as when the price allows.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of that happening either. Like, what was remember what I asked you? I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was the Andy Brock. He used a little bit different steel than I was familiar with.
Yeah, it was RWL34.
Right. Yeah. Now, would you consider that to be a little more modern?
Yes. Yeah,
carbon steel?
that's a little bit higher end, and it's stainless steel, if I remember correctly, but it's a little bit higher end steel. And it's like with the custom Ashleys, he's using 01, so that's a bump right there. That's versus say like over 1095 or some of their low
C7.
end. Yeah, they're C70 or C75. It's a big bump over those.
Yeah.
So, I think the demand is going to be there for, hey, we want better steels than these traditional knives.
Right. Well, the thing that's cool about that is you get your carbon steel, but you also get a better carbon steel.
Yes.
And the steel's very, very traditional in that sense, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of traditional guys, they don't mind. They understand the whole idea of your knife can rust. You would be surprised by the number of people that buy a knife and they're like, "Holy crap, my knife is rusting." I had a guy talk about that the other day when he bought a carbon steel case and it started to rust. He's like, "What the hell?" You know what I mean? Didn't know what he had bought.
Yep. Because that's the thing about it. I was telling you the other day that Laren and Pop's Knife Supply, they got a new steel coming, new carbon steel.
Right. And, what was the name of it? Do you remember? Does it have a name yet?
Was it Pro Cut? I think it was Pro Cut or something like that. I don't remember the exact name, but when I saw that, I was like, the demand is there.
Yeah.
Not just, and I mean, I don't remember the properties of it off the top of my head, but like I said, the demand is pushing, especially the steel industry, forward on what we want on our knives. I mean, really, for a regular while, always has. So, I think that's a pretty easily predicted trend that'll keep on going that way. It's just some of the slip joint guys take a little longer to be. You got to push them a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and another thing that I'd like to see. We're talking about the future now. Let's talk about what you'd like to see in the future. One of the things I'd like to see is with the Buck Custom Shop. them offering MagnaCut as an option for some of the slip joint knives. Now they don't. They have them for the several of the lockbacks. They got it for the 110, for the 112, and I'd like to see it maybe on the larger Bowie knife, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
I like to see them on like the 301, the 303, some of their USA made slip joints, just to give you the option, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want your 420 and you want a MagnaCut, you ought to be able to get it. That's why I feel like they've got the material now. They just need to make the blades, So I'd like to see that. Hopefully that will come within the next year or two.
Yeah.
But and I even said this last year of 24 for their innovation of the year I gave credit to Buckins. I was like, yeah, you got the MagnaCut on the custom shop now. That's a massive thing, before that, they'd only released a couple of like special editions stealth runs before, thinking 23, and then 24 they introduced it to the custom shops. Now you've got that. I've already bought one custom shop and a couple of other like special editions in MagnaCut. So that's a great thing to have on a Buck 110.
Oh yeah.
But, what else, are you looking forward to? Anything else? Something along the lines of slip joints that you'd like to see where there's some positive change other than just your steel, or maybe like other handle materials you think are kind of neat that you'd like to see that you're not seeing? Or
well, I kind of mentioned earlier, so I don't want to give away too much right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I meant when we were talking earlier today, and it's a new, I guess, wood product that I'm hoping will somehow make it onto knife cutting to knife handles in general.
Right.
Because it's a wood product made from wood, but it's you can call it enhanced wood. So that's evolution of materials, and that wouldn't surprise me if at some point in the next couple of years we see that. One big thing I would really love to see is with GEC. I want them to put out more knives. I want them to hey, let's up your production numbers, because what you're producing now is kind of keeping prices on the secondhand market very much inflated.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know any other way to, fix that besides putting more knives out, but still keeping quality the same. I know it can be done, but I don't know if they want to do that or not. That's the thing. So I don't know. But
yeah. So Orlos is saying that it can't be done because of the production time that required, because they're using the, you can't just press them out. You have to cut them out with a wire cutter, water cutter. And, it all depends on where you put your priorities, right? I mean, if you got enough machines, you can keep the production up.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. Like when we were talking about D2s, like D2 wouldn't. I don't think it'd be a good option for that. But I think EBL, they should be able to do that with that.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be too difficult.
Yeah, my problem with GC is not so much the number of knives they produce, but they don't have a handle on the flipping. The flipping is destroyed that brand for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't have a solution. I mean, they sell to the dealers. The dealers sell on to the buyers.
And what GF just said too, if they're going to produce more and it's going to sacrifice quality, then no, I don't want them to do that.
Yeah, I don't either.
And if they could produce more and keep the same quality, then I'm all about it.
Yeah.
But only if the quality doesn't go down.
Mm-hmm. Well, it says it on the Byron. I'm answering your question. It says, I would really like to know if Buck is actually heat treating MagnaCut in their Boss heat treat system, or are those blades done outside then stock for customers? I don't know. Generally, the way I understood it was the Boss comes in, he kind of guides them. He's a sort of, what would you call that, a consultant?
Yeah, he consults and comes up with the protocols, and I'm pretty sure if they don't heat treat in-house, Then someplace maybe like Peter's Heat Treat or some other big heat treat outfit does it. Because I know in the knife world, if you get into steels and stuff, you've heard of Peter's Heat Treat. That's one of the big companies, and that's all they do. And they do custom protocols however you want it done.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying Buck uses them, but that would that could be something they do or don't do. I don't know.
Yeah. And anyway, in any case, it's I just feel like they're doing some positive things, and
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, they are moving forward, so that's the biggest thing.
Right.
Just need to move forward with some other stuff.
Yeah, at least they give you the option, to upgrade your steel, even if you think that their main line should have a little better than 420. But, all right. Well, okay. Let's talk a little bit more, Jake, about some of the knives that you have purchased lately. We haven't seen much of your collection.
Yeah, so I
for
haven't.
several months because you haven't really been on the Discord. So
Yeah,
anything you
and
want to
during
show?
that same period, I haven't been buying a lot of knives either. I think I
Yeah.
mentioned to you, I've been kind of focused on just kind of making videos. I have a ton of knives that I haven't made videos on, but the stuff I've been doing a lot lately, I've really been into just customization of knives. So something like this, which is a regular black anodized Malibu. I went and got bead blasted, swapped out our pocket
Ooh.
clip for a Lynch Northwest pocket clip, and just kind of customizing the knives that I already have more so than adding new ones to the collection.
Right. Now, who's Malibu? That's the brand, or is that the name?
ProTech.
Yeah.
ProTech Malibu. There you go.
And they're actually local to me. So one of the brands that I have probably the most knives of, just because they're right around the corner from me.
You need to go over there and tell them to make me a Brend 1 and stainless steel handles.
Yeah, they do a lot of the 17.4 stainless,
Yeah.
which is like
Yeah.
that super heavy one. It's another one
Yeah.
from them, the Staccato
That's
collab.
nice. I like that
Yeah.
Malibu pattern.
Yeah, I actually got to meet up with them at our local gun range. Staccato was there for a ProTech event also, and so I picked this up from them. But I haven't been picking up a lot of new knives. I have this one coming out in a video tomorrow from TKEL, another American-made fixed blade. And this one's a collaboration with Melissa Backwood. She's got her like tactical Warren EDC. And they're going to have a bunch of custom ones at Blade Show. I think 100 of them with copper scales on there. But these are going to be available tomorrow on their website.
Is she going to do a video of flipping that and cut her wrist again?
She's definitely got a few videos on these ones out already. It's a nice size if you're into these smaller fixed blades like I am. I like pocketable fixed blades.
Yeah.
So
I do like that though.
Yeah. And the ring is actually part of the handle, and so this one actually came with the scale, so you can swap the ring on or off by just swapping out the scales.
Oh really? That's nice.
Oh,
that's kind of
That's a good idea.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah. What else do I have that's new? Not too much on me, actually. Got a few Rosecrafts for the pass-around group, the Otter Creek Barlow ones.
Oh, yeah.
Got that in blue denim micarta, as well as in stag.
Nice. Your stag's, it looks like a little darker than mine was.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the stag, is that kind of unique nature of it. I also like the different shapes that you get. Some of them will be super thick, some thin.
Yeah, some are, considerably. Some of them have a little bit of a saddle to them, if you know what I mean, sort of dipped into the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. This one I'm about to send off, but this is from a company I've never heard of before called Black Star Design. It's the Apex Arc.
What's your feeling on knives like that where they're all just sort of smooth? Because I've always had a problem with the grip on knives like that. I've got arthritis, and so it's tough for me to close my hand all the way down.
Yeah, this one does a pretty good job with the grip, where it's pretty, I guess, grippy is how I would describe it.
Okay.
It's got the really nice jimping on it, so it does a pretty good job. I think I like textured a little bit better, both for ergos and for just the look of it. I prefer, like, this one has that stippling.
Yeah.
In fact, I definitely prefer that.
Yeah.
The one nice thing about the smooth is I think it anodizes a little bit nicer.
Well, yeah. If you're just looking for the color and the smoothness of it, yeah.
But in terms of like grip, I definitely prefer something like this. Oh, actually, I gotta turn that around. Something like this versus the smooth skills.
Chaddock likes the blue one.
Yeah, I don't mind texture and grip as long as it's not too extreme.
Yeah.
Scott says, I am from Earth, so I love Spyderco. And there you go.
Yeah. He's got a point.
Yep. I don't think I have any Spydercos on the table today.
John, are you from Earth?
I am. I do like a Spyderco.
Hey, I'm from Earth too.
But you know what I didn't like about Spyderco?
What was that?
I'm still bitching about this. This has been many months ago, but they didn't have the Rex 121.
Oh
yeah. There at Blade Show, so I didn't get to buy one.
There you go. And it's even let's get that right. And it's even got Super Steel CPM 10V edge retention monster right there. Not the easiest stuff to sharpen by hand either, but it does it.
No, I imagine not.
Yeah, I want I want the military 2 and CPM 15V at some point. But yeah, military's always been my favorite Spyderco.
Yeah, I managed to grab the native in Rex 45.
Ooh, burnt orange.
I don't actually have it on me, but
oh, you don't have it on there.
No.
Right.
Did it have the burnt orange handles?
No, it had white handles.
White handles.
Yeah.
White handle.
I thought all the Rex 45 they did was in burnt orange.
Not sure.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, the
it was a
orange.
GP Knives exclusive.
Yeah, that might be what it is then.
Yeah.
Paul's bragging. He says he snagged the H5 in Rex 121.
See, John, how's it feel? How's it feel?
It's like a kick in the cherry, so that's all right. I'll manage.
Yeah.
I'll manage.
Yeah. You ain't got very big cherries.
All right, so let me show you some more of the knives I got today in the parcel from the UK. So those guys familiar with the ones I usually talk to over at the Slippy and Thrifty show will know that Mikey, Matt, and the gang very much into the Sheffield knives right now. And I've picked up a couple here, and I'll show. This one is which one is this? I'm trying to think. Okay, this is the new Ekiwood. What is it? I'm not saying that right. Ekiwood? Ekiwood.
No,
that's it.
Ekiwood.
Ekiwood. Yeah. Sneaky Iki.
It's
nice.
different.
Yeah, I like that pale wood.
Lighter. Yeah. And just their Barlow design with the clip point.
Nice.
And you can see it's a pretty plain knife. Not a lot of swedging or any eccentric things going on with the blade, but it's just plain Jane perfection. Love the Barlows from Arthur Wright.
Yeah.
I got a hell of a pull on them too. Another one, same basic knife, just different handle material. We've got one from Moonraker Knives. Moonraker's just a third-party outfit that gets the knives from Arthur Wright. And they've got this birchwood. Is that what it was? Beechwood.
I think
birchwood.
So.
Birchwood.
I think it's birch.
Yeah, mossy oak. Mossy birchwood. That's what it is. Something like that. So you see a lot of that wonderful grain in that.
Yeah.
Basically exactly the same knife, just like I said, different material.
Right.
Locks up like a bank bolt.
Yeah, and it's got a heavy pull on it.
Yeah.
I showed that one earlier, the Sodbuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those that were not in here, we'll show it again.
Desert Ironwood.
Desert Ironwood, clip point blade. Another Arthur Wright. Actually, this is an Ashley design. This is a custom. Our friend Griff was greatly responsible for picking out what he wanted for this knife. So I'll give props to him.
Don't do that too much. You'll get a big head.
And the second iteration of the Britbuster has a half stop, where the first one did not. It was just a cam thing. And I'll just show this one last. We have a Lanny's clip designs. Another Ashley design.
That's got a really nice swedge on it.
Yeah.
Just wait. There we go.
Yeah, this one's has have the swedge on it. Yeah. So beautiful. Can't remember the wood on this one. I'm not going to be able to tell you. Can't recall.
I'm not even going to try to take a guess either.
No, I'll be wrong.
I know I'd be.
Beautiful pattern on that show side, especially.
Yeah, it's very, very well done.
Yep.
But that's going to wrap up our show. We appreciate Jake coming on. I think we're pretty happy overall with the way things are going. Maybe not quite so happy with some of the political things that are going to increase the prices of knives. But
well, I want to say one last thing.
Sure.
From the early 2000s to now, so like late 90s, early 2000s, when I first got into the bigger knife world on the internet, to now, I mean, we're still in a golden age. You have all the choices you could want on about anything you want. So I mean, everything we're really talking about is, you know, kind of really, in the grand scheme of things, is small things. So that's that could be taken as a win and a pretty big positive.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Everybody in chat.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on too.
We'll have you on some other time. Can't have you devoid of having a live.
Yeah.
So at least until you can get another line, we'll get back on here. And I know it gets to be a little much when sometimes you're coming on multiple times a week, but hopefully you and Tim can get it back rolling again. We look forward to having the show going again.
Definitely.
But applause for. Let's hopefully this comes up quickly because I hate when I have to sit here and wait. Oh, there we go.
Fancy clap.